Hi. This is my water bottle which has water, but I'm gonna use it as a mic because I want to have something in my hand while I speak. So today we're going to be talking about why poor people have lots of children. Because it's always the poor people that have children, and I actually watched a video, like I got a reel of a woman being like, the poor may or may not have food in their stomach, but they will always have a child. So that's where it's inspired. As someone that doesn't even want to have kids, it looks completely counterintuitive to see someone having kids when they're not even able to afford having them. And you may think, well, if they can't feed themselves, then why bring extra people, extra children to feed, right? And there are actually a couple of reasons, and we're going to be talking about those reasons. I'm definitely not trying to justify having multiple children when you can't afford them, but it is a systemic failure. Rather than just blaming the person for having kids, we should be looking at it from another perspective. Life's only accessible goal or joy. So when one lives in extreme poverty, their thought isn't to plan 10 years ahead, right? It's to survive for another day. Behavioral economists and sociologists note that when people live in extreme poverty, their most milestones of success are beyond their reach. Like, for example, owning a house, owning a car, or starting a business. So the only thing that can give them happiness, and that is also accessible to them as a form of success, is having a family and raising children. And it gives them a sense of purpose, identity, and societal connection. More conservative ideas still prevalent due to lack of education. Values like having families, large families, a man not being manly enough if he isn't able to impregnate his wife, preferring a boy child over a girl child, and also religious values. Most religions, they not, I wouldn't say favor, but they encourage the ability to proliferate, and therefore they discourage the usage of contraceptions. Humans desire a form of symbolic immortality, passing on your traits, your physical attributes, your DNA, genes, everything gives them a sense that they are a part of someone else, and then that part of them will continue to live even after they die. So from here comes the whole concept of continuing your bloodline, continuing your lineage. Especially for older generation, there is also a lot of pressure coming from older people because they put a lot of values and emphasis on having family because they're more conservative, generally speaking. And as I've already mentioned, many religions, they discourage the usage of contraception because they value the idea of proliferation. Next point is the lack of education or sex education. As we already know, the quality of education in India is very bad, especially when we talk about government schools. There aren't teachers available, there isn't much facilities provided, and the quality of education is also really bad. And in most cases, when we look at backward societies, girl children are not even sent to schools. So there is a lack of sex education, learning about bodily autonomy and using contraception, etc. So this brings me to my next point. Data from the National Family Health Survey shows that the poor women don't actually want to have large families. What they want versus what happens is because of lack of access to contraception, reproductive healthcare, and agency over their own body. Next point is using children as their retirement plan. The lack of job security causes them not to have any savings for when they actually retire. As I had already mentioned, they're not thinking 10 years ahead, they're thinking of how to survive tomorrow or today. In Indian societies especially, children are generally seen as retirement plan, even more so if the parents don't have any savings because they invested in their child's future. It creates a very specific logic of, if you have only one child, that child gets sick, loses their job, or passes away, your retirement plan drops to zero. But if you have 3, 4, or 5 children, you are spreading out that risk. At least one of those children is going to take care of you, right? If one doesn't, the other might. and there is a chance that someone from these slums may make it in life. But it is very unlikely as the unemployment rate sits at 5.5% or as of June 2026. Even then, the traditional routes are very competitive. The total fertility rate has dropped to about 1.9 children per woman, and the rate must be 2.1 children per woman for a stable population. So we are seeing a decline in population of India. The highest rates are in Bihar at 2.9, followed by UP at 2.6 children per woman. Delhi has the lowest at 1.9, and Tamil Nadu and Kerala at 1.3 children per woman. The average fertility rate in urban areas is 1.5, and that in rural areas is 2.1. And when we talk about literacy rate, according to BLFS report 2024, Delhi has a literacy rate of 86.9, Kerala of 95.3%, Tamil Nadu of 85.5%, and lastly UP at 78.2% and Bihar at 74.3%. And these are not the 2011 census, these are the PLFS report from 2024. You may have noticed how they correlate to fertility rate. Among the states that I've mentioned, those that have higher literacy rate have comparatively lower fertility rate as compared to those with lower literacy rate. This goes to show that the more literate people are becoming, the more family planning they're doing and less children they're having in this economy. High fertility rate is actually a symptom of poverty and a systemic problem, and is most probably just a survival mechanism that people have created, especially those living in very bad conditions. So I would like to end this by asking you a question. Should you blame the poor for having children, or should you blame the system for creating such environments or such situations where they see it necessary to do so? I feel like a lot of people blame the poor for having lots of children, and from our perspective you can definitely see a pattern, and it's to us it's quite obvious. Why have children when you can't afford to feed them, give them basic necessities and everything? But from a poor person's point of view, as I've already mentioned all the points earlier, and as someone that never wants to have children, I will never be able to relate to any of those points. No matter how dire the situation gets, I'm never going to have children, but I might change my mind when I'm older. No, if I'm ever having children, I'm going to either adopt them or gain a child to surrogacy. I do not want to get pregnant. And I think the drop in fertility rate is also because of how educated people are becoming, and also a lot of influence coming from the West, because in traditional sense in Indian society, family and everything is placed at the highest point. But when you think about the West, there is a lot of individualization happening and bodily autonomy and everything like that. So because of globalization, these ideas are also coming into Indian subcontinent, and people are becoming more aware that actually I don't want to have children in this economy. And also the world is literally in ruins right now, and I wouldn't want to have a child where they would have to experience such a thing. And that's completely valid. And I'm also not trying to say that you should not have many children. I'm not against people that have many children if they're able to afford it. But one thing that should be considered when having lots of children, like 10 children, 11 children, is are you able to give them the emotional presence that they require to grow? Because a lot of the time what happens is when you have lots of children in a very short span of time, popping out one child every year, then you are not able to give them the full attention of yours. Physical presence or emotional presence, right? And most often the older children are made to be babysitters to the younger children, because the parents are not able to take care of every child. If you have 10 children, how are you going to spend enough time knowing them, everything else? And I think that is one of the issues that I have with big families, but I'm not against them. If you want to have children, you can, if you are able to give them basic facilities and everything.